Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar on employing interactive virtual training to address skill gaps and engage teams. I'm Todd Picciuello, Services Sales Director for HDI and our sister brand ICMI, and I'll be your host. I'm joined by HDI Business Associate and Instructor Extraordinaire, Randy Celaya. Jeff Anderson from GM, there's Randy. Jeff Anderson from GM Financial was also scheduled to join us today, but as we all know in the support center world, unforeseen interruptions can pop up, and Jeff had to attend some urgent matters today. However, Pete McGarrahan, Senior Director of Workplace and Collaboration Services at First American, has graciously agreed to fill in for Jeff. So Pete, thank you very much for making the time to join us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Todd. Thank you.
You got it. In a few moments, Randy and Pete will be sharing their unique perspectives on the importance of training and development. To accommodate Pete's availability for our 11th hour request, I'll be switching up the original order of topics for today's discussion a little, so please bear with us. Like all of you do every day in your centers, we will make it work. Before we dive into today's topic, let me just spend a few minutes providing an overview of HDI and talking through some of the current trends we're seeing related to training and investing in your team's development and engagement. HDI has been leading the way in support center and service management industry for over 30 years. HDI enables professionals and their organizations to drive change, harness knowledge, transform teams, make connections, and turn challenges into opportunities. We do this through a comprehensive lineup of training and certification courses, industry-leading conferences, both live and virtual, results-driven consulting services, community-based networking, and insightful research and informational resources. In short, HDI stands for Smarter Service and Better Business. So most organizations, come on now, just trying to move the slides forward. There we go. So most organizations over the last year were constricted in their ability to provide role and job-specific training, with most corporate training resources being deployed to ramping up remote tools and processes. It's important not to let too much time go by, as team members can lose skills. With turnover of team members and new hires, you need to bring your team together and invest in their knowledge base, skills, competencies, and find ways to create connections among them. Businesses will need to adapt, and that includes adapting training strategies to rethink the who, what, when, where, and how of their employee development efforts. In a few minutes, we'll take a look at how HDI live virtual training can do just that. I want to level set on a key takeaway from the last 12 months. So based on our 2020 audience survey and discussions with the hundreds of customers we work with since the pandemic began, it's clear that today more than ever, support and service management teams are being challenged to handle increased workloads and meet higher expectations for service and efficiency while doing it with fewer people and constrained budgets. If this sounds familiar, know that you're not alone and that HDI is here to help. It's not an understatement to say that COVID has upended businesses around the world. As the pandemic moves into its second year and the amount of time companies and employees are forced to alter their processes and behaviors grow, it becomes more and more likely that many of these changes will be lasting. So now is not the time to look back, but the time to look forward. Okay, we're going to bring Pete and Randy into the conversation now, and let me just give a quick introduction to both of these gentlemen. So Randy has been delivering training to HDI customers for over 15 years and is one of our most seasoned and sought-after instructors. Pete is the Senior Director of Workplace and Collaboration Services for First American Financial and an IT service leader and customer advocate. Pete brings 32 years of business, IT, and service leadership experience to our discussion today and was the 2020 recipient of HDI's Lifetime Achievement Award. Again, I'm thrilled that Pete is here today with us and so appreciate his willingness to step in for Jeff on such short notice. So guys, given your extensive experience in the industry, I was hoping you could provide us with your unique perspectives on the topic of training and the impact that it can have on our teams and our organizations. So I'm going to ask a few questions and you guys can chime in as you see fit. I'd love this to kind of be a little bit of a give and take between the three of us, so I'll kick it off. So just from your seats, both as an instructor for Randy and Pete as a leader in IT and a consumer, past consumer of HDI offerings, I'm curious to hear what you guys think in terms of how HDI training and certification programs prepare IT and support service management professionals to succeed in their roles. Let's start with the individual role. So Randy, I'll kind of kick that to you first.
You know what, that's a great question. When you look at individual roles, a lot of people in the industry now are new in the industry, new to leadership, and they really don't even understand what is a manager, what is our, what would you say the job description of a manager, of an analyst, of desktop support, to get really clear, number one, on what it is, but what's their responsibility in terms of in the industry, the best practices that are out there. And individually, I know when I'm teaching the courses, especially with analysts and desktop support, it's clear in terms of what their job actually is. What are we actually here to do? What is the industry doing? But it also gets them really motivated in terms of, hey, this is a serious position. It's just not working at the support center. This is an industry that's out there that people are utilizing best practices and they're becoming successful. So from a standpoint of individual and listening to, over the years, I've talked to a lot of students one-on-one, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say that if it weren't for HDI and the courses, they wouldn't even know what they're doing. But it really gives them a good idea in terms of what to do in the industry. But I think it gives them a lot of self-worth and understanding too in terms of career, gets them more motivated. And I know that Pete, in First American, you guys been there a couple of times and you guys got it going on there. But from an individual standpoint, from either desktop support or maybe director course or any course that comes to mind for you, what are some things that you see for individuals and the feedback that you're getting from your employees that you're sending through the course?
Yeah, I mean, the feedback has been overwhelming in terms of what senior leadership has committed to our team members. So way back when, 8 years ago when I came on board, we put together a service strategy that was aligned with the business, and we then created the different teams that was going to be part of Workplace and Collaboration Services. Two of our core teams are the IT Service Desk and the Desktop Services team. And when we kind of mapped out the roadmap of what we needed to do based on our strategy and where we were in the gap analysis, we identified the training component to commit our culture to developing our team members according to best practices defined by HDI. And, we went and did the instructor-led ones. We did, them going to various places when you used to do training, in training rooms and in conferences. Yep. And we even signed up for the virtual and the online ones. We are so committed to the training, we actually have our senior manager, Jim McPhee, certified as an instructor so that we can do our own training on HDI best practices to our team members, because that's how much we feel it's a benefit not only to our customers because we're delivering best practices, but it also gives the employees the confidence that they're learning best practices to develop their skills, that we believe in them, and they're showing us what they can do with them.
Mm-hmm. And I think
No, go ahead, Randy.
Sorry, I was just going to say that I'm glad you brought that up for the certified instructor, because that really shows the commitment of a company in terms of what we're doing out there in the industry. And that is another thing that individuals, when they get certified as an instructor, I mean, you just see it in a complete turnaround in terms of what support is and get them excited about that. So I'm glad you actually brought that up. Thanks, Pete. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, and I'll touch on this a little bit later after our conversation here, but Pete made a really good point about, how training drives engaged employees and really, employees who, feel invested in tend to, be high performers, right? Engaged with their customers, engaged with their coworkers, engaged with the mission of their companies. And so I'm glad to hear, Pete, that you're seeing the benefit of that at First American.
Yeah, the other things that we did that I think made a difference was we didn't go year for year, right? Some organizations look at training each year. We made a commitment to make training a part of our organization and not have to go year by year by year. So just putting it into the strategy piece and just making it an assumption that training was a part of what we would do, that gave the team the confidence of, we were committing ourselves to them. Sometimes you go year by year, you don't get the budget, or you do get the budget, and our team members are saying, are we going to get trained this year? Are we going to get trained? Well, unless senior leadership steps up and shows other senior leadership how important that training aspect is to performance, they're going to go year by year, and I wouldn't recommend that.
Yep.
And
a really good point.
Another thing that I'm thinking about too is, in listening to what Pete's saying, is when I have students like from First American or Chick-fil-A or all these major organizations that are sending everybody through, I get a lot more excited individuals in my classes because they know that the company's devoted to this, but they're also so excited right before class when I'm talking to people. You can hear it in their voice. They're like, everyone's telling me about this class. I can't wait for this class. And it's really kind of cool. From a facilitator standpoint and consulting standpoint, it's awesome to see new people come in that are so excited because they see the commitment of the company to this certification.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really cool. And that probably makes makes their experience in the classroom that much more powerful. They're likely to be more engaged students and hopefully will take what they learn in the classroom then and go back and deploy those skills in their jobs, which is really a win-win for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, I wanted to get your thoughts also on, the value that having a skilled and knowledgeable, especially in support centers, the value of having a skilled and knowledgeable workforce, the value that delivers, back to the organization and its customers. Can you guys just share your thoughts with us on that?
Well, for me, it's interesting to be in the industry for so long. A lot of people in courses don't know how to really show the value of what they do in support. And there might be some people out there right now that can agree with this in terms of maybe in the past or organization that you're working at right now, they're not looking really at value, they're looking at cost. So when I was a lot of support centers that I was a director and then I was a VP of operations for PetSmart with their IT, it's like they looked at us as an expense. They didn't look at the value of it. So it's really about promoting value in terms of, what the customer thinks it's worth. That's the number one thing.
Yep.
But value is something that really needs to be marketed, because if you're not marketing the value, basically what's happening is they're only hearing about all the problems that are out there. And there's so much ways to create value and show value. And I was just curious in terms of creating and showing value. Pete, what are some things that you guys have done there at First American to kind of promote that?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things. It comes down to, having daily reporting and being able to report on your SLA metrics. It comes down to week over week, month over month trending reporting. It comes out to reporting on your professionals in terms of what their productivity is, what their contribution is. But I think the biggest value opportunity we have is using the HDI Customer Satisfaction Index program. We committed to that probably 7 years ago, and we have a whole program around surveying and customer satisfaction. All my managers have to look at all of the survey responses to see where we've done well, where we haven't done well, and where we've really failed the customers. And when we fail the customers, the management responsibility is to reach out to the customer, recover the situation, and then coach the analyst or the process, whatever kind of failed, so we don't do it again. And this goes to my VP, all directors, managers, and supervisors, and they have to do this on a daily basis. Given that kind of feedback and attention, our response rate is about 25% on the surveys, which is about double the normal.
Sure. Yep.
And for us, the customer experience, the customer feedback, that speaks to a part of the value proposition.
Now, another thing, Pete, for value proposition and just value in general, I believe you are utilizing a balanced scorecard in terms of showing value throughout the organization. Can you tell us a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that the different customer experience and the business value was being captured and then reported in a way that was meaningful, and then the people we were reporting to would then kind of promote that to the business in terms of what we were doing. So, I mean, you're looking at productivity. You're looking at customer experience. You're looking at the financial aspect, like cost per contact. You're looking at a holistic approach to measurement and value creation. So it's not just about numbers in terms of contacts or SLAs. You really got to tie that financial side to it. So, when you're going to propose your budget, somebody says, wow, $15 million for a service desk? What does that really get me? Well, you better be ready to tell the story of what it gets them.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
And what I love about the HDI certification programs, especially at the leader level, is that I know we spend a lot of time helping those folks understand how to communicate and market that value.
Absolutely.
And obviously having, frontline employees who are, skilled, knowledgeable, engaged, well-trained, that's a big piece of this puzzle that you guys are putting together, right? If the blocking and tackling that's happening at the point of service is not where it needs to be, then that creates the cracks. That cause.
Well, back in the early days of this certification program, Randy and I worked together, and one of the things that I think we did differently was we attracted the senior individual in the company first to the program, and we sold the senior on the value of certification and training. And once the senior level person got it, then they in turn sold it, invited their managers to attend, their supervisors, and then their staff. So it went from the top down, and those organizations had an impactful value contribution.
Yep. That's
and
awesome.
Another thing too is a lot of times they're focusing on when I'm teaching directors and managers, they're really focused on performance indicators. So they're not really looking at key performance indicators in terms of goals for the organization, financially, the company, the employee, maturity level, their support center. And they're not focused on that. They're normally just focused on the day-to-day performance indicators. So that's another thing that they get from that class. I hear that all the time from directors and managers where, I was so focused on performance that I was forgetting all the balanced scorecard in terms of the organization as a whole showing our value.
Yeah. Awesome. And I know I want to be respectful of Pete's time. He's got to pull off here before 1:30 Eastern. But the last thing I would just love to get you guys to comment on is kind of the aspect of how training can really bring teams together. Especially in today's kind of widely distributed, forced to be remote environments. kind of the bonding element of training. I know, Pete, some of your teams and some of your past roles have actually, gone through the HDI Team Certified process, right? Because you put, so many, if not all of your frontline workers through the program. But if you guys can just, leave the group here with a thought around, how training is a good team development activity, that'd be really helpful.
Well, I think the one thing that you have to do is think about, is my team consistent? If I asked them certain question, would they all answer the same way? And, consistency from a standpoint of the employee, they think of consistency as building professionalism, and that's kind of what I see out there in terms of, you got to ask yourself, am I marketing the value? Are my employees really motivated about their jobs? Do they understand where I stand in my position and what's important all around to the organization? But I think a big part of it really is taking a look at the individuals, like we were talking about earlier, just understanding their value and what they do, and showing them that there is, you got to ask yourself also, does my support center know what the career pathing here is? And there's a lot of questions to ask, but those are from career path to individual success in terms of reporting to the overall organization. It's just, you got to ask yourself, am I being perceived as value? I mean, that's another question to ask yourself in terms of if you're looking at what I have to do in terms of being successful in support. What about you? What do you think about that, Pete? Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Todd. We have certified most of our teams. And one of the things that we tied certification to, and you have to kind of look at it, role and responsibility, performance expectation, setting goals for them on productivity and performance, and then really tying and linking the certification programs and the best practices and the content to how they can, use those to achieve that. And, after going through it for 7 years now, we have people that have gone through multiple certification classes that will tie that best practice content and performance to their promotion. And we're very big on continuing to promote people both in my teams and outside my team. So, one of the great compliments is for someone in another team to want to take one of your team members. And a lot of our team members that get that kind of awareness through their performance are certified. And they take that certification and that content and the practices very seriously because they know people in the organization and people before them have benefited from it.
Right. Yep.
I
Awesome.
actually just heard that from Sharp Healthcare the other day. They said exactly what you just said, Pete, just to acknowledge that.
Maybe because I worked with them as a consultant one day.
Most likely.
That's awesome.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, listen. Well, first of all, thank you. Both very much for your insights, Randy. I know you're going to stay on, but for the both of you, I think you're spot on with what you're saying, and I think you hopefully, got those messages across to the group here today. We're going to let Pete get back to his busy schedule at First American. So, Pete, thank you again for joining us. And, conditions allow, hopefully we get to see you really soon this year.
I look forward to it, Todd. Thanks for asking me to join. And, Randy, always good to talk to you, bud. Take care now.
You too. Take care.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Pete.
Bye.
Okay. So, now we've kind of heard Pete's take as a practitioner on the benefits of training and development and developing teams. I just want to spend a few minutes, really taking a look at why right now investing in your employees could be more important than ever. So what are some of the things, what are some of the benefits that investing in employees, delivers today to your organization? So we've kind of touched on this before, that training improves morale and job satisfaction, right? We're living through a period of unprecedented change and challenges. Morale and motivation suffer when we feel unprepared to perform according to our expectations. And this kind of, the kind of job-specific and role-specific training that HDI delivers to your teams instills confidence, and improves morale, job satisfaction, and engagement. Another obvious benefit of training IT support staff is that it boosts their performance. So increasing their knowledge and expertise of service and support employees significantly improves the experience they deliver to your customers and your end users, which of course can be a critical differentiator to your business. Training also identifies opportunities for improvement and growth. So, it seems like today in the corporate sector, it's more, performance is more, demanding than ever, the need for performance. And so every employee, has a greater and greater list of responsibilities on their shoulders. An important benefit to training is that it helps them as well as the organization identify some weaknesses and in turn, identifies a development roadmap to address those weaknesses. Training provides a framework to develop strengths, right? So our society's become, super competitive and demanding. Those who have advanced skills and abilities, tend to make progress. And it's the same for organizations that the companies, who are willing to invest in their workforce, make that progress as well. And, training programs provide the benefit of developing that framework to work on the strengths of the employees and ensure, progress and profits to the organization. Being more comfortable in our abilities allows us to innovate more and take on more risk. Organizations who invest in training tend to have significantly lower turnover. And we kind of talked about that earlier, that, training makes employees feel valued. People who feel valued tend to stay, and they tend to deliver higher levels of performance. From a company marketing perspective, those companies that are known for, in their industries, for employee development, for investing in their career pathing and developing their teams, they become the employer of choice. And, as the post-COVID economy starts to rebound, that's going to be really important, right? Because hopefully we're all experiencing, a bounce. We're going to see some growth. We're going to need to add staff, and having that reputation as an employer that invests in their teams is really going to help you become more competitive in retaining talent and attracting new talent. Training upskills workers and helps companies to promote from within. So this is something that I read the other day. In an effort to save money, 59% of CEOs implemented hiring freezes during the COVID-19 crisis, and this was in Fortune magazine. And it's likely that some of those companies could maintain those freezes as the pandemic continues to develop, although it's impossible to predict, what percentages that's going to be. But, it's possible that unless employees promote from within, they're going to end up with some skill gaps and overburdened workforce. So by offering more training opportunities, companies will help their incumbent workers gain the skills they need, to step into vacant roles. And finally, what we've seen is that training actually provides a really healthy distraction from the pandemic. Over the past year, COVID-19 has been on most people's minds every day due to the round-the-clock news coverage and the impact that it's had on everyday life. So it's understandable and will continue until the virus is fully contained. But in the meantime, you can give your employees something positive to focus on and help them feel in control of their future by providing a healthy distraction from the crisis through training and development opportunities. Randy, as I'm kind of moving to talk about the HDI Live virtual training, do those things resonate with what you've kind of seen and heard from your customers?
Absolutely. It's so interesting to hear you talk about it because from a facilitator standpoint, especially with the virtual training, the one thing that I was, I have my own company, I run my own company, but when I do get requested, I make sure that I'm teaching these courses. And the one thing I love about what HDI did was they're kind of ahead of the game in terms of virtual courses. And when that pandemic hit, we were prepared. So it's interesting to get the feedback from students saying, I didn't realize how good and interactive this course was going to be. It's not a webinar like we're doing now, but it's
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty, gets them motivated. Their performance increases. I get to have contact with these students throughout their career. That's why I still do what I do. From looking at their, one day they're an analyst in my class, and then a couple of years later, they're a director calling me from another company saying, come in and train my team, or now they're doing the private sessions virtually, which
Yep.
I'm seeing so much collaboration, teamwork, and that's the feedback I'm getting from students, but not only the students, but managers and directors saying, okay, it gives them something to focus on. Now we have more calls coming in, the technology is getting more difficult, but guess what? Our budgets are going down. So everyone's, having these problems, but when you have the training and the consistency, it gives you a platform to actually do quality assurance to make sure everyone's doing things the same way, so you get that consistency, but it also cuts down the time in terms of troubleshooting, things like that, if they follow the best practices, which we hear all the time.
Yep. It's really interesting. And as we pivot here to just kind of spend a couple minutes talking about HDI live virtual training and how that can bring teams together, I want to make sure we for the audience that we understand what virtual training is. So some people will hear the term virtual as it relates to training and think e-learning or self-paced online training, which of course does exist. But HDI live virtual training is actually something entirely different. So HDI live virtual training is classroom training. You can see the instructor, you can hear the instructor, you can talk to the instructor, you can ask the instructor questions and get immediate answers. You can talk with other students, and the instructor can talk directly with you. If the course supports breakout discussions, our GoToTraining platform allows the instructor to place groups in their own room, and the instructor can move in and out of these rooms, checking on the progress. The only real difference from the traditional classroom is that the instructors and the students are not in the same physical location. You're in a virtual classroom, an online classroom, but still participating real time with a real instructor and real students. So you have the opportunity of taking an HDI class with one of our expert facilitators while working from your own home or office or your company, and your company won't have to spend money on travel for students or the instructor, which is pretty awesome. Some additional reasons why HDI live training for teams tends to be more affordable than traditional classroom training. So since there's no travel cost, more participants can attend, which obviously drives the price of training down per person. There's no overhead for classroom expenses. And this approach, without the travel, obviously supports kind of less time away from students, from their jobs. So there's less impact on productivity when it comes to training. So, as you noted, Randy, HDI has really been ahead of the curve when it comes to virtual training. We've offered this delivery channel now for several years.
Right.
And, historically we saw, most of that done through the live kind of public calendar, which obviously we still support year round. But what we're seeing is the adoption of this as a tool for training teams, getting people together, especially today, when, teams have potentially been, out of their brick and mortar offices and working from their homes and not really connecting with their coworkers for quite a while. We're really, hearing feedback from our customers today that, bringing them together through our live virtual platform makes them feel like they're together. And it's really creating connections and increasing their engagement. So, we're excited about HDI live virtual training. For anybody on the call today, we obviously are available to, provide you with more information about that as needed. In the last just a couple minutes here that we have, and then we'll let everybody get back to their days. Just really quickly, some of the most popular HDI programs right now that are being deployed for teams. You'll note they pretty much, focus on the front line. Roles, analyst roles, team lead roles. You'll see that, these are still HDI certification courses, They range from 1 to 3 days. And these are obviously courses that we set up with companies, delivered through our GoToTraining platform. You know, these are private groups, so that we can kind of tailor the discussions, some of the examples, and really kind of focus on, you know, your company's kind of key objectives and outcomes for the training. And maybe, Randy, with a final thought, you know, you teach both our live public courses and our private group training courses. Can you just talk a little bit about, you know, things that you can do with the private groups that you can't do with a public group from folks that have, you know, from different companies?
You know, that's a great question, because one of the things we do, the instructors, if we're doing a private course, we really ask a lot of questions in terms of where they're at with service level agreements, underpinning contracts, service level management, standard operating procedures, quality assurance. We take a look at all of those, and we can customize it, give examples of situations that is in their environment. And not only do we put an issue out there, but then we can, during the class, we could say, here are the issues that we have in our organization. During this private session, putting our people through, let's get a list of the common problems or issues that our employees have, and I can get that information all together, especially if they're doing like a wave of training, and then we can customize it going forward. So, okay, in your situation, you guys are supporting X, Y, and Z. So how would you actually prioritize this? A big part of it also with private training is, you know, it never surprises me anymore, but at first it did. You know, when I ask people, how many priorities do you guys have when you're logging a ticket? And automatically I'll hear one person say 3, one person says 5, one person says 4. And we realize that no one even understands what the priorities are and what they mean, or anything like that. So it's kind of cool because I get to take some information specific to them and present it in a way where I can use their language for them to understand it that way. But from the private training, the consistency, I hear it all the time from directors and managers saying, my gosh, there's so much, not only more consistency, but everyone's speaking the same language, which I think is a huge benefit when you bring your whole team together and they hear the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. You know, and I think that's something that, you know, we're getting that feedback across the team from, you know, our other great facilitators as well, but it's helpful to hear you reinforce that, so thank you very much.
Yeah, and it's exciting for an instructor to hear that too.
Yeah, oh, I bet. Well, if anybody on the call has any interest in learning more about these or any of the other HDI training offerings, you know, please do not hesitate to reach out. Here's my contact information. You could obviously get all kinds of information through the HDI website on the education page. And that kind of brings us to the end of today's session. So I want to thank everybody for joining. We really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to spend this time with us learning about, you know, our live virtual training offerings. And obviously a big thank you to Randy and Pete for their help as well. So I'm going to end the session now. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Randy.
You're welcome.